Hi, AP Juniors. This is going to be different this quarter. We don't have any face-to-face small group work. You're not going to be reviewing writing with your neighbor, and we're not going to be in a classroom together. But we are still going to learn, and we're still going to grow as writers, and we're still going to learn to be more critical readers of all sorts of texts. So you're going to have a lot of welcome kinds of videos for the beginning of your lessons like this, where I might be giving you some instruction. I might be modeling some sort of skill or writing for you. And you're going to be recording your own videos. You're going to be commenting on each other's videos. You're going to be sharing writing online. So we're going to try to do everything we've always done. We're just going to do it in a little bit of a new way. In order to transition from where we left off to where we need to go, I want to do a little bit of a review type of lesson today. And our topic is writing nuanced claims. You all have turned in some very well-researched and quite lengthy developed research papers on topics related to race and class in the United States. And I'm going through those right now and giving you guys feedback, and you'll have them back as soon as I'm done with them. And shortly, you'll have the option of either turning those into a speech or crafting a different persuasive speech on another topic if you're ready to move on to something else. But I think one thing that will help you to think about and to self-assess the quality of your own research paper you've written and to write the best persuasive speech you can is to revisit this idea of the nuanced claim. So quick little recap video here, and then I'll set you off on your work. Let's recall that a nuanced claim is one that goes beyond the obvious. It's one that goes beyond the simplistic, and it's one that is fully aware of the complexity of reality and of life and of people. So before watching this video, Google Classroom, an assignment for today, asked you to watch another video, one that is an advertisement. So it has its own rhetoric. It's meant to be persuasive, that focuses on Santa Claus and his reconsideration of a binary. As the article that accompanies the video kind of lays out, and as you may recall, a binary is the splitting of things into just two camps, suggesting that there is only A and only B, that everything can be perfectly categorized into one of these two sides. We see binaries all the time when we talk about good and evil, when you talk about liberal and conservative, when you talk about far and near, when you talk about East and West, when you talk about developed and developing countries, right? We like to put things into neat little boxes. But the fact of the matter is things don't fit into neat boxes very well. So it's important to remember when you are crafting an argument that it can be tempting to argue that something is perfectly suited to just fit into a box. But reality is often more complex than that. So let's just review the few ways you can avoid being overly simplistic and ways you can promote nuance in your claims. The ideal way is to make the case for something that transcends a binary. So rather than arguing that something should be done always or should not be done always, that something is good always or is bad always, that something is totally right or totally wrong, try to think of limits, caveats, specific cases when your claim applies and times when it doesn't. Think about whether there's something outside of the binaries. So not just like it's the binary, it's this side usually, but this side sometimes. That's nuance. But maybe also your claim is arguing that what should be done is right here. Or maybe you're just arguing a claim of fact that this binary is false. Maybe your claim is everybody needs to find what works for them and that these are not your two options. So I think a lot of my examples over the next few weeks are probably going to relate to current events and the coronavirus. So I'm thinking right now, you can make a claim about physical distancing. And I'm using physical distancing instead of social distancing because I think there are some problems with that term. We shouldn't be distancing ourselves from each other socially at this time. But 6 feet of physical distancing is recommended in order to prevent the spread of the virus via droplets from sneezes, etc. So let's say that the CDC argues that everybody needs to physically distance themselves 6 feet from anybody else. It's not practical. So it would be not very nuanced to claim that that is something that everybody needs to do or that the law should enforce. But maybe a better claim, one that takes into account the complexity of reality, is that everyone should physically distance themselves from others by at least 6 feet, unless it's impractical because they live together. Okay, so spouses, family members, roommates are exempt from this guideline because you're just not going to avoid each other. You're going to be touching the same surfaces. You're going to be in close proximity all the time. Maybe you sleep in the same bed together. Maybe it's just the intimacy of your relationship prevents you from being able to tolerate being 6 feet from each other all the time. So that's a nuance that the CDC has put into their own claim, their own recommendation. They need to distance yourself unless you cohabitate. Maybe there's another kind of limit. Maybe it's one to do with policy suggestions, right? So the government should call for physical distancing and staying indoors in all municipalities, all states, but they shouldn't enforce it by law. Because if we enforce it by law, people who are already hurting economically are going to get hurt worse by fines. People who are at danger for being out are going to be even worse danger when they're confinement in close quarters in jail. That people who we want to protect by keeping indoors, we're going to be putting in harm's way by putting them in prison. So maybe that's your nuance, is that this is a policy we should endorse and call for, but not necessarily enforce by law, by fine, or by imprisonment. So that's nuance. So I would encourage you, when you come up with a claim, always look for a way to embrace the complexity of reality. Think about what might make your initial gut position not feasible. Think about ways in which it might not be considering the real complexity of life, how it might not be pragmatic given the realities of contexts and of people. So step 1, look for the limits, the gray areas that you could acknowledge, etc. The second way you can look for some nuance, if there's really something that's not, maybe something is an extreme position. Maybe the question is, maybe it's a moral question, right? Maybe it's, that age-old, is abortion something we should be legalized or not? There are many positions other than yes or no. There are exceptions, etc. But let's say your position is legitimately, it should always be legal, it should always be illegal. Those are valid positions. But in order to find some nuance in that statement, at the very least, you can acknowledge what other positions are out there. And that shows that it's a form of nuance because it shows that you've considered other people's positions. So you start your sentence with although or despite or even though, when you kind of acknowledge that counterargument before you get to your position that is extreme. The third way is to just, maybe you can't think of any legitimate other views, which is bad if you can't do that. And there's no gray area, there's no room for caveats or limits, which is not ideal. But sometimes, in very rare circumstances, that might be the case you find yourself in. Then your last resort is, at the very least, make sure your thesis statement, your claim, has some really compelling reason built into it. So when I'm looking for a nuanced claim, I'm looking for ideally some sort of limit, caveat, exception, narrowing of the extreme options, a rejection of pure binary positions. But if I don't see that, I want to see an acknowledgement of a counterargument, and a good counterargument, one that's compelling. Maybe it's even a little bit of a concession, if not outright rejected. And as a bare minimum, you better have a firm reason in your claim. Most of you have done really well with that. So I did want to say most thesis statements, most of the claims I'm seeing in your research papers have these things. Just make sure it's consistent. So what you are doing today for your work is, I want you to watch some news, read some news, scroll through social media, whatever you want to do to kind of connect to the world. And I want you to keep an eye out for some claims. I want you to identify at least 5 claims that you see, read, or hear today as you consume media, whether that be TV news, podcast, a blog, social media, whatever it may be. And I want you to, could be even something personally you hear from, conversation with your parents or siblings or whatever, a friend on text message. I want you to write down those 5 claims. You don't have to find them all at once. You can do this assignment throughout the day if you want. Keep it kind of casual. And I want you to write down these 5 claims, identify why they are or not nuanced. Tell me why they are or are not nuanced, using the language of binaries, limits, exceptions, caveats, etc. Use those terminologies. Explain why it is or isn't nuanced, and then I want you to write the other version of it. Tell me how a nuanced claim would look if it were not nuanced. Or if you find one that's not nuanced at all, how do you think that person could have approached it differently to be more nuanced? That's your task. So you're going to fill out a Google Doc, submit it to Google Classroom before 8 a.m. on Friday, but try to get done today so you can focus on your 3 classes, math, social science, and world language tomorrow. Write down those 5, keep an eye out for them, keep an ear out for them, think about what the nuance, explain why they are or not nuanced, and then rewrite them the other way. And they'll give you a little bit more practice engaging with the ideas of nuance and lack of nuance in claims. Then on Friday, I'm going to ask you to begin planning your persuasive speech, which you'll work even more on next week on Tuesday. All right, so that's where we're going. Let me know if you have any questions. Don't hesitate to send me an email or sign up for office hours virtually. I've already had my first appointment with a student, went really well, and my internet held out, so that was good. In the meantime, stay safe, physically distance yourself from others, have lots of FaceTime and other video chats with your loved ones and friends, and resist the urge to break our social distancing guidelines, because they're actually really important, and we want to keep our community safe and get this pandemic quelled as soon as possible. So be smart, be safe, and enjoy the assignment. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye, guys. Take care.